Hello, I'm Clyde Wright. This is my first video review of any game ever, so please bear with me. But I'm recording this because I would like to do a review of a game called 2 Rooms and a Boom. Now, 2 Rooms and a Boom is currently in print and play only mode, but I have it on good faith that it will be kickstarted later this year. So keep checking the BGG forums for information about its Kickstarter. But I wanted to do a video review for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because, well, the game doesn't have a review yet, and I think it's a really great game, so people need to learn about it. But also, we play the game on the BGG forums a lot, and because of that, that pushes a lot of the other content about the game down and out of the thread. I'll get into why that is in a little bit, but anyway, I've played this game a bunch of different times on both the forums and in real life, and the game works really well in both cases. So let me describe first a little bit about the game, and then I'll go into my opinions about it. So the first thing is that 2 Rooms and a Boom is a social deduction party game that lasts anywhere between 6 minutes and 15 minutes, depending on which version you're going to be playing. The rules are fairly minimal. It looks like a thick rule book, and this is, by the way, my print and play copy, but it's not very long. The rules to the game itself are very quick to explain. The main reason why the book is so long is because a lot of these rules relate to the different characters in the game. And if you want to play a really complicated game, you can throw in a lot of different characters, and if you want to play a simple game, then you can only have a few characters. So I'm going to describe briefly how the game works, and then I'll go into some of the characters and how they work. So in 2 Rooms and a Boom, it's a social deduction game. You're going to be divided up into 2 teams, and you're going to be trying to fulfill the win condition of whatever team you draw. The 2 main teams are red and blue. The blue team is led by the president, and the blue team's win condition is to ensure that the president survives. The red team's win condition is to blow up the president. They're going to have a leader, and that leader is called the bomber. So if you draw the red team, the straight up red team card, then you're a support role and you're trying to help the bomber blow up the president. If you draw a straight up blue team card, you're just a support role and you're trying to protect your president. So, like in most hidden role games like Werewolf or The Resistance, it comes with a bunch of cards. And like in most social deduction games, the blue team is the good guys, the president, and the bad team is the red guys, the bomber. And then there's a bunch of these generic blue and red roles. So if assuming you're going to play the basic game, you're going to have to include the president and the bomber, and then any number of red and blue cards. And so for instance, in a 6-player game, which is the minimum player count for this game, you will have a president, a bomber, 2 blue cards, and 2 red cards. So 6 players total. You'll shuffle those up. You'll divide the 6 players into 2 different rooms, 3 each, and then you'll deal out the roles. So the room separation is random, and then the roles are random. Now, in the game, it suggests that there should be 2 rooms, but you can play it on 2 different sides of the same room. It doesn't really matter which you choose. But the idea is that you can't really see the other room, nor can you hear what's going on in the other room. That's the general gist of how the designers intend for the game to be played. So if you have that set up in your gaming space, that's ideal. But if you want to just do it on 2 different sides of the room, then that also works. And I've played the game many times like that as well. So you divide up into 2 rooms, you deal out the roles, and then the game starts. Now for the learning game, and that's what I suggest you start with, there are 3 rounds. The first round is 3 minutes, the second round is 2 minutes, and the third round is 1 minute. So overall, this game takes about 6 minutes to play. What you're going to do is, over the course of the rounds, you're going to try to deduce who all the other people are in that room. And in a 6-player game, there are 3 people in your room, of course. And then eventually you're going to want to start electing a leader for that room. You might vote for yourself. You might say, I don't trust anyone, I want to be the leader. And then maybe other people will support you in leadership. In any case, the room has to come to some consensus about who the leader is by the end of the 3 minutes. After the room has elected a leader, that leader will then send one player from that room to the other room. Now, simultaneous to this, you have the entire other room, and they're doing the exact same thing. So at the end of round 1, there will be a swap of 2 hostages between the 2 rooms. And then for round 2, the leader of the previous rooms, they still maintain leadership. If the leader decided to transfer themselves, they hand off leadership to another player. And then round 2 happens. At the end of round 2, which is only 2 minutes, there's another swap. And then finally, at the end of round 3, which is only 1 minute, there's a final swap. And then everyone reveals their roles. So again, the win condition for the blue team is that the blue president ends up in the opposite room as the red bomber. And the win condition for the red bomber is that they end up in the same room as the president. So over the course of the game, you're going to be trying to figure out who everyone is, and you're going to be trying to make sure that your side fulfills its win condition. Now, what makes this game kind of different than Werewolf of the Resistance is that the game allows you to show your card to other people. Unlike in the Resistance or Werewolf, it's illegal to show your card, right? But in this game, it's totally legal, and that's what makes it totally unique. So, for instance, let's say I'm the president, and I'm eyeing another person in the room, and they look kind of trustworthy. They happen to be blue. I don't know this at the time, but I say, would you like to co-reveal? And they agree, or they disagree, but if they agree, then we swap cards. We exchange cards, and we look at each other's cards. Ah, he's on my team. And we exchange roles back, and then we continue on the game. Now, this gives the game a completely different feel from a lot of social deduction games. First of all, in a lot of social deduction games, it's all about trying to deceive and misdirect. And in this game, that might be a strategy. But there's an entirely legitimate way to play this game, which is where you always tell the truth, and you try to figure out who's on your team, and you try to establish trust, and you try to work together with your teammates to fulfill your win condition. Or you could play it the exact opposite, where you're just trying to lie about your role and try to figure out the roles of other people at the same time. There's 2 different ways you can approach this game, and that's what makes it really interesting. So I'm describing the 6-player game. The game goes up to 30 players, the game's rules say that it supports up to 30 players. I've played it anywhere between 6 and 20-ish, and I really like the game anywhere between 10 and 18. I think those are really solid numbers, especially 10, 14, and 18, because in the 10-player game, you have 5 people in each room. In the 14-player game, you have 7 people in each room. And in the 18-player game, you have 9 people. Because again, part of the game is about electing a leader. And so you need to have a majority. If it's an 8-person room, you have to have 5 people voting, which is a little bit harder to get. And you might have a deadlock at 4 and 4. That's never fun. So that's the base game I've described to you, and it's very simple. To teach this game requires 2 minutes of people's times, and then after you start playing, if people start wandering in from another room, they can pick it up just by playing the game. You just throw them into the game and let them figure it out. It's very, very simple, conceptually. So now I want to tell you a little bit about the different roles that the game has, because they can really spice up the game and give each game that you play a completely unique and different flavor. Before I do that, I want to point out that when I first learned about the game, I was introduced to it at BGGCon 2012 by the designers, Alan and Sean. And they just threw me into a game. I didn't know anything about it, but I really liked it then. And then I found the print and play set, I printed it out, and I just skimmed the rules, and I didn't really read all the descriptions of the 40 or so roles that the game has. Since then, I've learned, sort of as I play the game more and more, I'll look at a new role and think about how that role interacts with other roles. I will say that right away, 40 roles is very, very overwhelming to think about, and when you start reading the descriptions of the roles, you'll sort of wonder, I don't understand why the designer ever thought to include that role. It doesn't really make any sense. But the more you play the game, the more you see why the designer has put in those specific roles and how they interact with the game. So if you're going to be a successful moderator of this game, and by the way, the game is moderator-less, but the moderator is the person that selects the roles. They can play the game as well and not be have to be neutral. But the person that's moderating the game really needs to think about the balance of the roles and how they affect the game. And you can only really do that, I think, through playing it a whole lot. So start off with the basic roles and then add in some roles as they get more and more, as your players get more and more comfortable with the game. So so again, the basic roles are red president and red bomber and blue president. And then you have your generic blue and red roles. The first spice that you can add to the game are the doctor and the engineer. The doctor needs to co-reveal with the president by the end of the game, or the blue team loses. The theme here is that the doctor has the pills for the president, and they have to co-reveal with each other, otherwise the president has a heart attack. The engineer needs to co-reveal with the bomber before the end of the game, otherwise the bomb is not triggered, or this bomb's not set, and it cannot blow up the president. That's the theme there. So the thing that these two roles add is that it forces the bomber and the president to need to co-reveal with other people. Because if that aspect weren't in the game, the bomber and the president might not ever co-reveal and they might still be able to win the game. So when you're moderating games and you want to think about how you should force people to co-reveal, add in these two roles. And these are the two most basic flavor roles that you can add. And I nearly always play with these two roles. I think they really add a lot of stuff to the game that you can then later flesh out with other roles. So those are the basic roles. Now, you might wonder, like, if it's just a game where you can just show your card and co-reveal to everyone, why does it really matter? Well, there's a lot of roles that involve stuff happening when co-reveal is happening. So, for instance, there is the criminal roles. There's the blue criminal and the red criminal. And so let's say that I'm the blue criminal and I co-reveal with the red bomber. Any player that I co-reveal with becomes what the game calls shy. And shy just means that they can no longer show their card to anyone. So for instance, in a game where the engineer exists and the bomber has to co-reveal with the engineer, if I'm the blue criminal and I somehow realize that someone is the engineer or is the bomber, and I co-reveal with them first, they can no longer fulfill their win condition, and thus blue has a much better chance of winning the game. All then blue has to do is make sure that the president reveals with the doctor, and then they win. So the criminal is an immediate offset that you can add into the game to make co-revealing a little bit riskier. And they add a lot to the game. So I mentioned the shy condition that you can gain. You can just straight up give the game some shy guys. And the shy guys cannot co-reveal. So anytime anyone asks them to co-reveal, the shy guys have to say no. Which adds a lot to the game just by itself. They add an element of bluffing, because if you are not the shy guy, maybe you act like you're shy the entire game. And you say, I'm shy, I can't reveal. In reality, you're the president, you're the bomber, or whatever. You're trying to cover your role, and you bluff this role. So it adds a layer of bluffing. I'm trying to look. So I mentioned the fact that in the game you're trying to convince people to vote for you to become leader. The mayor gets 2 votes. This is a really useful role when there's an even number of players in a room, because this will often help for tiebreakers. So if I have say a 16-player game, I'll often throw in the mayors. It's a good role. Similarly, the Nazi allows the player holding the card once per game to reveal their card to the room and take control of the room without having anyone vote for it. Now, whether or not you agree with the fact that there is a Nazi card in the game, they probably will change this maybe before the real version comes out. But in any case, the role itself is very interesting and allows for a lot of tactical decisions that the team can make when trying to figure out how to fulfill their win condition. The Nazi is a great role. The Psychologist is a player that cures shyness. When you co-reveal with a shy player, they're no longer shy. So if let's say the red shy guy reveals with the blue Psychologist, this shy guy is no longer shy and he can show his card to anyone and break the rules of the game. A lot of the roles are exactly like this. There are conditions in the game. For instance, one condition is the stoned condition. You are stoned if you ever co-reveal with the Gorgon. And when you are stoned, it's kind of a silly game. You have to walk around like this for the rest of the game. That means that you can't vote for anyone, because to vote in the game, you need to point to someone. Once a player has a majority of people pointing to it, then they're the leader of the round. But the Gorgon is just stuck like this, and they can't point. They're stoned. Now, the medic cures all conditions, so except for shyness. But if you're bitten, that's another condition. Or if you're stoned, the medic can cure you of that. Now again, it doesn't matter which medic co-reveals with you. If you're blue and the red medic co-reveals with you, you will lose the condition that you've been given by some other player. So for instance, the werewolf gives the bitten condition. And the werewolf, once you're bitten, anytime the werewolf reveals his card to the room and howls, then everyone who has been bitten also must reveal their card to the room. So this can be very powerful in games that have a lot of different people playing and people are very, very confused about who is who. So I could go on and on. I'm going to highlight two more roles that I find really, really interesting. And then I'll talk about the gray roles, which are add a whole new layer to the game. But the first I want to talk about the Body Snatcher role. This is a really cool role, and the Body Snatcher, anytime you co-reveal with that person, you get to take their card away from them. They don't lose the power that they have, but they can no longer co-reveal. So for instance, if you're the Body Snatcher and you co-reveal with a medic, you take their card away from them. They're still the medic, but they can't heal anyone because they can't prove that they are the medic. So this is a very, very powerful role. And then, not only that, but if you're the blue Body Snatcher, you have that medic card. Maybe you stole the red medic card, and now you can go around and convince the red team that you're on their team and, screw with their win condition. So these are two very, very interesting roles. Definitely play these to really have a very, very spiced up game. And finally, the Hypnotist. And this is the craziest role in the game. I'm not really sure how you even play with it, but I feel like it's for very, very advanced groups. The Hypnotist, when you co-reveal with this player, they whisper into your ear and they say, you believe you are the blank. And you can say any role that's in the game. So perhaps you are the red Hypnotist and you co-reveal with a generic blue player and you say, you believe you are the bomber. Now that player has to believe that they're the bomber and they need to fulfill the win conditions of the bomber. It's a very interesting role, and it requires a little bit of spirit of the game type playing, but it's really cool when you can get a group all in the same page and play this role really, really well. Alright, so really quickly I'm going to go over some gray roles. Now, there's the red team and the blue team. We haven't talked about the gray team. There are a bunch of gray roles and they all have their own win conditions, and they typically are paired. They come in pairs. So for instance, these two gray roles, the intern and the rival, are sort of a pair of gray roles. Now they each have their own unique win conditions. They're on their own team. The rival, for instance, wants the president to die and the rival to live. And the intern just wants to be with the president at the end of the game. Or there's Ahab and Moby. Ahab wants Moby to die, and Moby wants Ahab to die. But in order to win, you have to both live and have your rival blown up. There is the victim. The victim wants to die. They win if they die. Finally, there is the green team, the zombie player. And they work a little bit differently than all of the other teams. The zombie, when he co-reveals with anyone, that person also becomes a zombie. Now, the medic, of course, can cure any condition, and that includes being a zombie. But the win condition for the green team is that, so over the course of the game, more and more people will become green, unless, of course, the medic cures them. The win condition for Team Zombie is that at the end of the game, when the bomb blows up, all of the people in the other room need to be zombies. So, of course, the people in the room that gets blown up don't have to be zombies, or can be. It doesn't really matter for the win condition. But that's the zombies' win condition. And this also basically makes the game very, very chaotic, and people are either, you know, trying to avoid the zombie at all costs, or after they realize that nearly everyone's a zombie, everyone's trying to become infected. But of course, the team wins, not if everyone becomes a zombie, but if the room that gets that doesn't get blown up is a zombie. So it adds a lot of chaos into the game, but also a lot of laughs. So I haven't gone over I've gone over maybe half of the roles in this game. There's a lot more there, and they each have their own. They add something interesting to the game, and as a mod, you can really customize the game and make each game a very, very unique experience. So I will say that I've played this in real life probably about 15 or 20 times now. I've modded maybe 12 of those times. And each time I play this, the people typically really like the game. I've played it with some hardcore gamers, and they're less enthusiastic about it, but for non-gamers, this is a fantastic game to teach because it's so simple to learn. And for people that like Werewolf or The Resistance, it's also a fantastic game. The main benefit of this game over, say, a Werewolf game is that 18-player Werewolf games might take an hour, 2 hours even, depending on how analytic people get. But in this game, because the short game is 6 minutes and the long game is 5 rounds and 15 minutes, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's no time for analysis. I mean, the more you play, the more analytical you can get in a short amount of time. But because of the game's timed nature, you really can't AP it out. You have to really think on your feet, and the game goes by so quickly that you can play 8 or 9 sessions in a night. But it never goes on, it never drags on too long. And I really like that aspect of it. And of course, the other nice thing about this game is that people only die at the end of the game. They don't die over the course of the game. So for instance, I played this game at Presscon, and I set up a game next door to the Werewolf game. They have very, very long Werewolf games at Presscon, and typically like 40 people show up and play in one game. And as people would die, they would come over and they would hear the commotion in our room, and they had nothing else to do, and so they came over and they played Two Rooms and a Boom, and they all really liked it. I got a lot of good feedback from people at that con saying, yeah, like I came over here because I heard people actually having fun, and it sounded like there was a lot of people that were really enjoying themselves, and a lot of people stuck around, and they didn't know who I was a complete stranger, but they saw everyone playing this crazy game, and they got sucked in, and it's very easy to do that. But also, we play the game on the BGG Play by forums, and I would definitely recommend, if you have any interest in this game whatsoever, I would definitely give that forum a shot. I actually like the game more on the forums than I do in real life. I like the game a whole lot in real life. I'm sort of torn. Like, the great thing about the game in real life is that it goes by so quick, and you don't have a lot of time to think. You really have to you have to be really quick on your feet. in order to try to win. But on the forums, each round is a day. It's 24 hours. And that actually goes by really quick, but you have a lot more time to really sit and think about who is who and really try to misdirect people or be completely honest sometimes. Depends on the game that you want to try to play. But you can be really analytical and sit back and read the entire thread, reading the entire round and see, you know, how people are interacting and what you think that means. And I really like the game in that setting. It adds a layer of strategy to the game that I think is very difficult to get in a 18-player real life game with a bunch of new people. But on the forums, you can really sit there and you know the play styles of everyone else. If you've played, we've now played I believe 12 or 13 games on the forums, and so you get to know all the players really well. You can really start to get into the deduction role, which is the thing that I like about these style of games. So that is Two Rooms and a Boom. It is by Alan Girding and Sean McCoy, and hopefully they will be releasing it on Kickstarter later this year. But in the meantime, you can find them on Facebook. You can visit the BGG page and find the links there to the PNP sets. Print out your own copy. Play the game as much as possible. Please join us on the forums, and I look forward to playing with you there or in real life.